My name is Neil Patel, and I help companies generate more revenue through digital marketing. Entrepreneur Magazine said I was the #1 marketer in the world, and they also said I created one of the 100 most brilliant companies. I started my first website at the age of 16. I took all the money that I earned from working at an amusement park, and I paid a marketing firm. The marketing firm provided no results, and I quickly learned that I wasn't alone. Out of my frustration and from being broke, I had no choice but to learn marketing. My first client was a power supply manufacturer. I helped him generate another $25 million in sales, and from that point, I realized the power of marketing. I helped everyone that I could, and I built my reputation by being honest and over-delivering. I've helped companies like Google, NBC, Viacom, General Motors, eBay, but nothing's more satisfying than helping small business owners succeed. I founded 4 multi-million-dollar companies, and I've learned all the mistakes that you should avoid. I've written about them on Forbes, Entrepreneur, Inc., Fast Company, and even on my own blogs. It's so awesome to know that colleges from all around the world are teaching my material in their classroom. Over the years, I've received awards from the President of the United States, the House of Representatives, and the United Nations. People believe marketing is expensive and difficult. Fortunately, that's not true. There is a formula. Even if you don't have a technical bone in your body, you can get results. And my mission is to share this formula with you. Hello, everyone, and thank you for attending today. We are going to get started. I'm going to share my screen, and that way you guys can see my presentation. All right, can you guys see my screen? Someone tell me a yes. I'll take that as a yes. So today we're going to be breaking down the secret sauce, 7 effective CRO tips to unlock your marketing growth. I'm the co-founder of NP Digital. We're an ad agency where we help companies grow through digital marketing, whether it's through driving traffic or increasing conversions. I also created a few other companies like Crazy Egg, which does A/B testing, from Ubersuggest that does helps you drive more traffic through SEO. And we work with companies of all sizes. And I'm not trying to say this to brag or anything like that, but it's more so to tell you or prove to you that when I give you tips and when my team gives you tips and strategies, it's not based on our quote unquote opinions. It's based on data and what we know works. So I already talked about myself. We also have John here. John, do you want to give a quick introduction on yourself?
Yeah, hi everybody. My name is Jonathan Callahan. I'm the CRO manager at NPXL, and I've had some experience building CRO teams in both small medium business settings and enterprise settings, and I've also run CRO campaigns for several Fortune 500 companies.
And then we have Karen from NPD. Karen?
Hi, everyone. I'm Karen Bellin. I'm the VP of Data Analytics and Insights at NP Digital, and I work mainly with enterprise clients, and I've been doing this for over 15 years.
Awesome. So we've delivered consulting and services to over 492 companies with 8 different offices in 5 different countries. We're continually expanding, we're continually growing. And what's cool about this is we're seeing data, not just from what works from a conversion standpoint in the United States. We're seeing it for all different languages, whether it's Portuguese or whether it's Spanish or whether it's German. We're seeing all these different languages and we're seeing tons of different data. So again, if you just use even 1 or 2 of the tactics that we break down today, you're going to be better off. And that's really how we know the secret sauce to boosting conversions. It's just we see tons of data, we run tons of experiment, and after you do this for many, many years, you eventually figure out what works. And we've been doing these webinars also for quite a few months now. People have been loving it, we're getting amazing testimonials. And what we found is if people implement what they learn, they're even happier. So, look, if you implement any of the tactics that we present or don't implement, it doesn't really hurt or help us, but we want to see you succeed. And that truly does make Karen, John, and even I really happy. We generate a lot of visitors. We are able to run experiments really quick with some of our sites, which is really cool. With some of them, we literally can get data, within a few days to see what works. Even if you have statistical significance within one day, and we'll talk about this a little bit later on, you still need to run your test for a little bit longer than that because things can really change quickly overnight. The key to boosting your conversions is to make your customers love you. With conversion optimization, it's not just about numbers and what's going to cause your conversion rate to go from 1 out of every 100, which would be 1%, to 2 out of every 100, which would be 2%, right? It's about how can you get people to convert? What do you need to do to make them love you? What can you do to make that experience so delightful that you knock their socks off and they're just like, I want to convert and become a customer? But before we start with CRO, I probably should explain what conversion rate optimization is. Think of it this way. If you have a website and you get 100 visitors and one converts, that's a 1% conversion rate, right? 1 out of 100. If you can change your copy, the text on the page, the images, your call to action button, even the placement, the language, maybe add a video. There's certain things that you can do to convey your product, your service better, which in many cases can potentially double, triple, quadruple up your sales, or even increase by 10%. Every little bit adds up. And if you can go from 1 out of every 100 people buying from you to 2 out of every 100, that's doubling up your conversion rate, which means you're going from a 1% conversion rate to a 2% conversion rate, which allows you to spend more money on traffic acquisition and marketing, which allows you to compete more with the bigger companies and do better. And a great example of pages that you would fine tune to boost your conversion rate, it's not just your homepage or a checkout page. It could be a landing page, or it could be an email opt-in page. It could be an upsell or a downsell page, right? It could be an email campaign that you're running in your email copy so that way you can get more repeat purchases. It could be a sales page. And by tweaking every single page on your website that helps with conversions or causes conversions. If you have a big site, you may not be able to do all, but you can do the main ones that at least assist in conversions or cause direct conversion. You'll see more revenue. And as I mentioned earlier, your customers are human beings. You got to optimize for humans, not for numbers like ones or zeros or ones or, robots. And with conversion optimization, typically it involves creating a variation of your page. And you can adjust one element on the page or multiple elements on the page, and you can see, did that change cause an increase in conversion? You're in essence running a split test, and you can see, all right, the original version, version A, is typically always the original version, and that's your original conversion rate. And then you can say, okay, the new version, version B, and sometimes you can even do multiple versions at the same time, B, C, D, if you have enough traffic, and you can see which one people prefer the most and what converted the most and what generated you the most revenue.
All right. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of our top CRO tips. The first one is just how to get started with CRO. So for running your first test, actually, I think, Neil, could you jump to the next slide first and then back to this one? Sorry. So the first thing you need to do really is just get started. If you're interested in CRO, you've probably read some scary blog posts. I remember reading an article one time that said the minimum that you need to be spending to set up a successful CRO program was something like $500,000 per year. But you don't need a full team of statisticians and web developers to run a successful CRO campaign. You can do it yourself, but you really just need to get started. And the first thing to do is just run a single A/B test. Maybe you have an idea of something you want to change, or you've done some research. It doesn't really matter. Running a test will help. You'll get your software set up. You'll understand some of the basics of the testing programs, and you may get some ideas for the future. Then, after you've got your legs under you, you can start doing some more serious research, putting together plans, doing more complicated statistics. And then after your program's been running for a while, you can scale and start recruiting for a specialist or maybe even a team of specialists to run your program. So for running your first test, there are a few fundamentals you need to follow. Things like setting up proper tracking and running statistically valid tests, like we'll talk about in later slides. But one thing not a lot of people mention is making sure that you have an optimal installation of your testing software. an improperly installed testing platform can cause major issues like site speed delays and content flashing. There are a lot of different testing options as far as platforms. Some of them are budget friendly, and some of them, like Google Optimize, are free. So that's a great place to start. So we're going to be getting into setting up a successful CRO program from the ground up. But if you don't want to hang around for all of that, we're starting out with some quick tips. The first thing is, if your site was built in 1995 or it looks like it was built in 1995, you don't need to waste your time A/B testing. You can just move over to a modern platform with a nice theme. You may have heard of the concept of a local maximum. This is just the highest your conversion rate can be within, like the current site settings. So sometimes you just need to start fresh and it'll save you time and make you more money. Another common issue we see is easy to fix responsive design issues. So a good way to identify some of these issues is to open up the developer tools or in your browser of choice and set the screen dimensions to be responsive, and then just drag the screen from being very wide to very narrow and watch how the content fills the space. Just making sure that all of the assets on the page look good at all of the different widths, things like calls to action, font sizes, making sure that there's appropriate padding and margins, making sure the images are scaling correctly, etc. Another easy fix is showing easy to find contact information. So things like links to a contact page or a contact form, having a phone number visible, email, chat links, social media support, and then also links to FAQs like return policy and support information if that's available. The bottom line is customers are going to run into issues on your website. They're going to have product questions about delivery. They're going to need support with orders. And you can improve the design as much as possible to provide that information. But if they can't find that information on the page, they're going to need to contact you. And if they have an issue and they can't find contact information, they're just going to leave your site. Also important to note is that having prominent contact information doesn't necessarily mean that users will contact your support team. Just the knowledge that the support is there if they need it can increase the trust and conversion rate. Another tip is to communicate free shipping if you offer it. If users are surprised by high shipping costs, especially for low-cost items, they're going to bounce from the site. You can see in the survey conducted by Baymard, the majority of users who abandoned during checkout was due to high shipping costs or other similar fees. At this point in online shopping, free shipping has pretty much become expected. So if you offer free shipping, make sure that it's clearly communicated to your users, site-wide, like in banners at the top of the page and text near the add to cart call to action. And if you don't offer free shipping, consider trying building the cost of shipping into the cost of your products and testing it out. Similar to free shipping, you should show an estimated arrival date in the cart and checkout, especially if you offer fast delivery. Like shipping fees, estimated delivery dates can reduce uncertainty. Uncertainty can cause stress and make users bounce from your site. This is something that you want to display as early as possible, even on the PDP, especially if you offer free shipping. And if you shop on Amazon, this is something that you've likely seen before, on the product pages, a little piece of text that says, buy today, get it as soon as Saturday, things like that.
And as John is breaking down the shipping, it's super important, especially for e-commerce. To give you an idea, one of my buddies sells television cables, kind of like those monster cables, so that way you can get better sound or better pictures. And he couldn't offer free shipping, but what he did is he increased the price of his product to cover the shipping costs, made the shipping free, and literally his conversions almost doubled. It wasn't exactly double, but it was a little bit less than that.
Yeah, that's a great example of just how powerful this can be for customers. Another similar thing is to display stock information on product and category pages. So displaying stock information helps for multiple reasons. Confirming that a product is available can help reduce uncertainty. But also, if it's available within your platform, showing the actual quantity can increase motivation through scarcity. If a user sees, oh, there's only 2 of this product left, I need to get one before they're all gone. But this is something that you don't want to overdo or mislead your customers with false information. Putting false scarcity information isn't just unethical, but users on your website will oftentimes pick up on this and it'll cause them not to trust your brand.
Yeah, and typically if you have like 100 available, you don't want to show the number or 1,000 or anything like that.
Right.
Once the number is like below 10, it typically can help boost conversion rates and cause it to sell out faster.
Yeah, that's a great point. The last tip is to customize the site experience for returning visitors. So personalizing the site experience can increase the motivation of new and returning users by showing information that's relevant to them. One easy way to test some personalization is to get returning users back into the shopping funnel as quickly as possible, either by directing them to the cart or to the last product they viewed if they hadn't added a product to their cart. And I'll pass it off to Karen to talk about tracking.
Great. So we're going to go over our third tip around tracking your results. And when I first meet with my clients, one of the questions I ask is, what is the conversion rate you want to affect? And Neil went over this in the beginning, that there's many conversion rates that you can possibly affect on your website. So based on what conversion rate or conversion rates the client wants to affect, and also ask, how is it being measured? Because I want to know the baseline. And that's something that Jonathan mentioned earlier. When was it its highest? When is it its lowest? How does it average? What are some of the seasonal effects? So tracking is critical to my clients to be able to answer these questions. I also want to know, before we go on, I also want to know how much we need to affect this conversion rate to make an impact on the business. And what do we know about the customer's motivations or concerns leading up to being able to convert? What do we know already? This is important because we want to be able to level set on if we're willing to test variations that can improve or not improve or leave that conversion rate the same, in the interest of being able to learn more about the customer and build upon those learnings to affect that conversion rate and affect the business over time. Once that's clear, we're in a much better position to be able to affect it and know how we can affect it and know what we can learn specifically about the customer. So that's why tracking is important. That conversion rate, and on this slide we're showing it as a macro conversion, and showing that there's possibly many, as Neil had mentioned before, that must be tracked. And that's only the beginning, because then we get into what this slide is showing and talking about in terms of micro conversions. So often you'll need additional tracking to that key conversion rate that you're trying to affect. Neil had mentioned this idea of assisted conversions. What are those interactions or content or touch points that actually help us get more conversions? So that's why this additional tracking is important. Now, you have to be careful here that you're looking at things that actually lead up and contribute to that macro conversion or the conversion rate you're trying to affect. Sometimes it's too much to try to track everything. There's data integrity issues when you're tracking things that maybe aren't as important or critical in the path to conversion. So pretend you're your own customer, go to your website, try to convert, and keep track of all those interactions, pages, content that you need to view and messages you need to see in order to know which of these micro conversions you want to be tracking, because you'll learn what you can do to affect the macro conversion by putting more of these micro conversions in the path of your customer. Now, you've probably noticed that your conversion rates that you're trying to affect are different based on where your traffic came in from, what ads they were exposed to, if they clicked through from social media or search or some other location. And also that there are differences in the conversions, that some people who buy from you may have a better lifetime value, stronger lifetime value, or that someone might, for B2B, for instance, there may be an offline conversion that happens once you capture that lead. Maybe your salesperson needs to follow up, but there's things that are happening after the fact from your website that are important in terms of affecting your business and showing an increase in revenue. The webinar today, we're really focusing on what happens once someone is on your website and the steps they need to take on your website to convert. I'm going to show you the basic funnel that we're talking about. So this is a basic funnel, and I mentioned the tracking, and here we have our micro conversions that we need. We expect someone to see, potentially a homepage. Of course, a lot of traffic is coming in directly on a product page, so we might affect those flows differently from a conversion rate optimization. How do we convert more people who come in from the home page would be a different way of looking at testing than how do we convert people who are coming in from our category page. It would be a different way of testing people who come in from our product page. And Jonathan also mentioned we might test differently. How do we convert people who are returning to our website? So within this website funnel, there's many different tests and ways to test that we would look at. But from a tracking standpoint, you want to have all of this tracked so you can see the fallout for those different funnels that you want to affect. So here, just to help understand and interpret this, we're saying that of the people coming in through the home page, 10% are continuing to that category page. And from those people who are on the category page, 30% are continuing to that product page, etc. So here, here it's just important to understand, like, where are people getting stuck in the funnel and what are the different funnels and different ways that people can convert on our website.
Great. So I'll be talking about the tip 4, which is understanding where the issues are. So, now you've got your testing platform set up, you've got tracking set up, but before you begin testing, you need to understand where the actual issues are. So, you've got the funnel set up like Karen was talking about, and you see that users are leaving on category pages, but why are they leaving there? What's missing on that page or poorly designed that's causing users to exit the site at that point? So there are a few user research projects you can do yourself for under $100 to identify what the issues are. And there are numerous ways to categorize the issues that users run into on your website. Categorizing and organizing the issues you identify will help you a lot later down the road. And one of the ways to categorize issues is whether they're functional issues that are causing users difficulty on the site, or they're branding and messaging issues that are causing users to not fully understand the benefits of your product. The first research tool is exit intent surveys. So we're all familiar with exit intent pop-ups. You decide to leave a site, and right as you go to close the window, a modal pops up offering you a discount. This is done with JavaScript that monitors the position and movement of your mouse and predicts when you're about to leave the page. And these are really successful for getting users to sign up, but they're also good at capturing information about users on your website. So instead of showing a discount, you show them a survey. And through the survey, you can begin to understand what the issues are on your website. But it's very important that before you launch a multiple choice survey, you run an open-ended question. The question that we ask users when we do research for a new client is, what's preventing you from completing a purchase today? And often we'll get feedback about issues on the site from the users who respond to the survey that the client wasn't even aware of. So running a multiple choice question first will bias the data and won't provide you with any new information. But once you have feedback, you can organize them into groups and run a new survey like the multiple choice question shown in the previous slide to quantify which of these issues affects the most users. User testing is another great way to learn about your site experience. So essentially what you do is you write a scenario for users to complete and use a platform like usertesting.com to watch the users in your target audience complete the steps on your site and talk about their experience. These are some quick pro tips for this. The first is, don't make your scenario too specific. You want to let users figure out how to use the site on their own. For example, compare the two prompts, find a product that matches your needs and add it to your cart, versus using the top navigation, select X category and filter using the filters on the left side of the page for product within X price range and click the link to add it to your cart. The first prompt will show you what the issues users run into on your site as they try to navigate. And the second, just like the multiple choice survey, isn't going to tell you anything you don't already know. Also keep in mind that these users are being paid to review your site. So some of them will feel the need to talk constantly about meaningless site features or say complimentary things, so the session is rated highly. So make sure you're paying more attention to what they do than what they say. Watch for when they get stuck on a specific step and what they try to do to get unstuck. Also make note of any situations where they complete a task in a way you didn't expect. Session recordings are anonymous recordings of users on your website. But unlike user testing, there's no context or tasks, so it can take some practice to identify the issues here. You can filter for sessions on specific pages, or even set up recordings only when a certain behavior is completed, like adding to cart. As you review sessions, make note of any issues as they appear, any issues that users appear to run into, and then save a link to each of the recordings as you do. And then over time through this process, you'll start to identify some trends. Our analysts will oftentimes watch hours of recordings for a single site just to begin to understand where the issues are and where the opportunities are to improve the site. As you complete these research projects, you'll build up quite a list of issues, and it's important that as you organize them, it's important that as you do, you organize them, because each of these issues that you find can eventually become an A/B test. So make sure you're making note of what the hypothesis is, where the idea came from, as well as the status of the test as you move forward. And you can see here a screenshot of our real test database for our Ubersuggest tool. It's important that you distinguish between business problems and design problems. A lot of the issues that you run into can be resolved with design fixes, like making product configuration easier or removing unnecessary fields in a form. Other issues will be business problems that can't be fixed with design. Examples of this would be shipping being too expensive or the products having bad reviews. In the case of business problems, use this as an opportunity to address the fundamental concerns that are causing these issues. Of course, there are also items that fall into the middle. For example, if a user says that products are too expensive, are your products actually too expensive, or are you just not doing a good job communicating their value? And I'll pass it off to Neil to talk about prioritization. Neil, you're muted.
I'm muted. Can you guys hear me?
You are. I think someone unmuted you.
There you go. So let's talk about prioritizing your efforts, because when it comes to conversion rate optimizations, you have a lot of options and you're probably trying to figure out, all right, which one should I do first, second, third, fourth? And what I recommend doing is you start off with the reoccurring issues. If you're getting the most complaints from the surveying that Jonathan talked about, or you're seeing like crazy rage clicks when you're using a crazy recording session or a hard drive recording session, and that's what's causing the issues, then start with the obvious ones. Or as Karen broke down the funnel, if you see one step or page that's causing the most drop off, start there, because those are where your biggest issues are, and fixing those first typically boosts conversions the most. And when you're doing tests, it's all about designing objectively. So you want to rate what kind of impact you think that the test can potentially have from a score of 1 to 10. The confidence that you have that it's actually going to win. Because remember, this is test. It doesn't mean that it's going to succeed and win each and every single time. And of course, you also need to look at how easy is it to implement and get done. Because if you end up finding out that, all right, I can have this test, it may have an impact of 2, and I have a confidence of 2, and it's really hard to do, so it's a 1, then you probably don't want to run that test first. But if you have something simple on your e-commerce site, like, oh, if you offered free shipping, we know a lot of people have talked about, or Neil or Jonathan, Karen, they talked about how it can boost conversions. So we think it can have a 10 impact, or 8 or 9 or 10. Pretty high that it's going to work, maybe 8, 9, or 10. And it's pretty easy to implement, 8, 9, or 10, right? You either offer free shipping or you just increase the price of your product if you can't afford it. So you'll want to pick the ones that you think will have the biggest impact first. And there's a lot of different pages to optimize, from your About Us page to your product detail pages, to your key exit pages, to your key landing pages. And there's no specific order that I would say pick your About page first, your product page. You need to look in your analytics, as Karen mentioned, and look for that drop off, just like in that chart, right? Google Analytics will show you the pages that drop off, have the biggest drop off, that are related to actual conversion. And if it's a page like a product page and everyone's dropping off and that's your main money page before they add it to their cart and then check out, well, that's what you need to adjust. Or let's say you're a service-based business, you have a page that describes your service, but you're barely getting any people to fill out their information, right? That's the page that you would want to focus on first.
All right, so now you've prioritized a plan, and you need to figure out how to implement it. When we run A/B tests for our clients, as soon as we determine a test has won conclusively, our developers go in and they hard code the winning design into the website. One of the biggest errors we see people make when they run their own A/B testing programs is not implementing the winning tests. So not only do you lose the revenue from not having an optimal experience on your website, but you prevent yourself from being able to iterate on that further and continually improve the experience. Testing should be a continuous process, but you need to make sure that your tests are statistically valid. So if your site has lower traffic, like under 100,000 sessions a month, you'll need to set up more advanced tracking and make special test configurations to make sure that you're getting valid findings. In addition to identifying issues and testing solutions, you should also be testing any major changes that your business plans to make to your website. This can save you time and money, as it'll prevent you from implementing bad designs and experiences that could potentially cost your business. Make sure everyone on your team knows when and where tests are running so they don't make any changes to those pages. Not only can a change made in the middle of a test make the results invalid, but it could break the test and cause serious issues for the half of the users in that page who are included in the variant. Also, make sure that you're following statistical best practices, like we mentioned earlier, to make sure that all of your findings are valid.
Yeah, and remember, A/B testing can lose you money as well, right? Running really bad tests or breaking pages can ruin your revenue and reduce it drastically. So make sure people aren't making changes to live tests.
Yep. Additionally, each of the tests that you run should be testing a hypothesis. It should be based on a problem that was identified by qualitative and quantitative analysis. It should be making a change that solves that problem, and there should be a quantifiable goal that measures the impact of the change. So say, for example, you have a store that sells t-shirts, and you see in session recordings that users are clicking in and out of product pages from the category page to view the on-model product images. So you hypothesize that showing the on-model instead of the product image on the category page will help users browse more effectively, and they'll buy more of your products. So you run a test where you make this change and you measure transactions, and you find that the test increases the conversion rate. But what did you learn from this test? Now we have data suggesting that the on-model imagery resonates more with users. How can we use this knowledge to improve the user experience on other areas of the site? Maybe we test adding more lifestyle imageries to the homepage. Try and see if you can think of any other ideas that you would have to changes to the website based on this information.
And the learning that Jonathan talking about is super, super important, because when you make a change to a page and you see that it either drastically goes up or down, it's actually a good thing. Even the down, and you're probably wondering why is it down, is because then you're figuring out which parts of your page people are sensitive to, and then you can figure out how to adjust it to actually get more conversions as well. And right, that's all about tracking your learnings and figuring out what actually people are sensitive to.
The last thing that I'm going to mention is some of the unique challenges that both small and medium-sized businesses and enterprise businesses face when they're setting up a CRO program. So if you're in a larger organization, chances are you already have the financial and technological resources to run A/B testing, but there are likely many people whose permission you would need and a lot of red tape to cut through. If you're in a smaller organization, chances are you have the authority to start such a project, but you may not have the time or resources to start the project yourself. If this first situation sounds like you, try and find out how you can position CRO to benefit a decision maker whose approval you need. Is there a specific area of the site they don't like, or are they in conflict with someone else in the company over whether X or Y should be on the homepage? If they sign off on your A/B testing program, it could be a way to address that problem area of the site that they're concerned about, or it could be a way for them to prove that their idea is best about what to put on the homepage. If you're in the second situation, just start small. There are testing platforms that have visual editors that will allow you to build tests without any coding experience, but just make sure that you're doing a lot of quality assurance if you do use a visual editor, as there are a lot of risks.
Great. So between, of course, Neil, myself, Jonathan, and the teams and clients that we work with, we have a lot of learnings from how to test effectively. So we talked about some of the ways that we can test, but in kind of a bigger picture view, we want to encourage you to persist. So Neil's talked about not every test is going to be a winner. There's even some risk with your testing that you could temporarily see a lower conversion rate, but the benefit will be that you're going to learn something about your customer, especially if you designed your tests in a way that lets you track and learn those things that you intended to learn and fill the gaps in your knowledge. We want to encourage you to persist. I'll also show you some case studies where bringing up some trust messaging, helping the customer feel confident in moving forward, that there's no risk to them in the purchase, is really critical. Like that idea of putting safety first. The social proof is what we call it, when we bring in those testimonials or those star ratings or other elements that show other people have bought this and enjoyed it, the reviews. The other thing is the innovation. Jonathan showed in the quick wins, don't try to test your old outdated site if you have an opportunity to bring it into the modern age using modern technologies that are already going to solve a lot of problems, the page speed or setting the user's expectation of what they should see on your website. So go ahead and start with something that is already kind of a big step ahead and see if that can raise your baseline. And again, and then there's this note around preparing for failure, but I would say prepare for learning, that you are already setting up to track the conversion rate that you care about. You know some things about your customer, hopefully, that are motivating them or making them hesitate before they convert. What can you learn, not just to affect that conversion rate, but to learn more about your customer? And the other thing with the case studies that I'm going to show you is that each one is a test that had a big impact on the conversion rate or the business. And we talked about how do we compound these results. Once we have one success, how do we build upon that? And one of the important things that Jonathan mentioned was you need to implement your winners so you can test on top of those and continue to build your results. So here's one. This is a case study of a client, Atomic Filters, and we're seeing from this test almost 200K lift in our annual revenue. And this is an example of bringing that social proof up into that area where the person is deciding to buy. We have the rating, we have the review, it's from a customer. The next one is Pure Water Systems, and here we're seeing 170% conversion rate. And this one, we're taking away this sort of quiz around why do you want a water filter, and we're showing the product and saying here's what we have to offer. And so in this case, that had a really positive effect on the conversion rate overall, and you can imagine the amount of tests that we can build from there. And then finally, on this case study, we're seeing another lift in revenue, and we can see some changes. It may be a little bit small for you, but one of the things that we test often is quantifying the claim. So rather than saying we can help you solve a problem, we're saying we're giving some quantifiable time within 7 months, or bringing some data into that claim. And that's something that we've seen work in many cases to drive those increases in revenue. So once you have these winners, once you're tracking it, so you're able to quantify the impact, you want to build upon this and create even more gains.
Now, you don't want to take risks with your conversion rate, right? You don't want to just do what you want to think will increase conversions based on your gut. You want to use data, because if you just keep running random experiments based on your gut, you can actually derail your business or the marketing efforts and cause it to go in reverse. With conversion optimization and improvement, it's like what you'll end up seeing is you'll end up getting stronger results over time if you just keep using research and use data, and you want to make sure that you hard code it, because if you don't hard code it, you're not going to really get the results. And you want to make note of it, because what you'll end up finding is a lot of times people in an organization can just end up changing it. But you need to look at it from every aspect, from research and design, development, reporting, launching, and maintain, and just have a good process and framework in place. So that way you can get better results over time, and it takes less time to get those results. So that's pretty much it. Now we want to dive into some questions and Q&A. And if you want us to just help you with your A/B testing or any part of your marketing, you can also just scan this code right here with your phone, and it'll take you to a landing page, and you can fill out your information. Or you could just email us at consulting@neilpatel.com. But let's get into some Q&A. Awesome. So do we have any questions?
Yes. Can anyone hear me? Can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Good. Hi, everyone. I'm Barbara from Neil's marketing team. Okay. Apparently, there's a little delay. Can you guys hear me now?
Yep.
Uh-oh. There is a delay, but Okay, so I have some questions here. A lot of people have asked in the chat, and then I also have some other questions that usually people ask about CRO. So the first one is by John, and he's asking how much data and traffic is needed to effectively draw conclusions from A/B testing.
Karen, do you want to answer this? I can answer it if
Sure. Usually what I'll do is I'll use a testing calculator, and I think Neil might even have one on his website, and look at those baselines and those conversion rates to see, based on the conversion rate we want to affect, what the samples and how confident we want to be in that result, what our sample size needs to be. And then I can see how much time it would need to test based on how much traffic I can get into that sample size. Some conversions you want to be very certain, have 95% certainty around, for example, where it's going to really affect your business, affect your revenue. Other ones you may not need, and those might take a longer time than if you need lower certainty, like an 80%, which is kind of a minimum level where it's something that, good enough learning to move forward, something you already think you're going to do. You just want to make sure it's not going to be totally detrimental to your website.
And as Karen mentioned, we have the A/B testing tool on the Neil Patel website. If you just click on the tools section and just click on A/B testing calculator.
Yeah, that's great, because that's actually one of the questions people are asking is what tools they could use for A/B testing and also for tracking. Does anyone have any recommendations around that?
Tracking, you can use Google Analytics, so that way you get your conversions in there and you can track revenue. It's not always perfect, but it's better than nothing. And then I always recommend syncing up with your database if you have engineering time and resources, just to double check everything. You can use tools like Crazy Egg to do your A/B tests. There's tools like BWO, Optimizely, Hotjar. You can also use Google Optimize, which is free, and that you can run A/B tests on as well. SurveyMonkey to end up running surveys to your audience. They have a free version. Qualaroo is another one for surveying as well.
Great. Maybe a question now for Jonathan. Tony S. is asking, can you drill some more into breaking down conversion micro steps for a B2B business?
Yeah, sure. So the micro conversions for whatever your conversion funnel are going to be unique to your website. Just what I would recommend here would be stepping through whatever the conversion process is on your website as a user would. So landing on a landing page, beginning to fill out a form, completing X form fields, submitting a form. If it is lead generation as B2B. And then what you would do is just go in, using Google Tag Manager or whatever tag management platform or analytics tracking tool you used, and set up events for each of those steps. If it was a different funnel rather than lead generation, you would set up whatever those steps were for that process. But it's unique to whatever your conversion funnel is.
Okay. Now we have another question here from Casey. That's a good one. What's the ultimate quick hint that you can see working for most of your clients, and what's the lowest hanging fruit?
Your e-commerce. So free shipping if you're e-commerce. Upsells or downsells upon checkout. It doesn't matter if you're selling a service or a digital good, that tends to add more revenue right away. That's almost always a winner. Another one that's almost always a winner is taking checkouts that are one step into multiple steps. So instead of just saying put your name, email, and everything, and just doing name, email, and then the rest on the next step, that works well. Multiple payment options is another huge one. We're seeing on average, if you add PayPal as also a payment option, you're seeing roughly like a 17-18% lift in conversions. Higher percentage then the 17-18% will use PayPal, but total revenue lift, we're seeing roughly 17-18% there. In B2B, free trials convert well. It's better than doing a 30-day money-back guarantee, especially like in SaaS. And then lead forms that are multiple steps tend to convert better than one really long lead form for service-based businesses as well. But those are all quick, easy win tests that usually work almost all the time.
I would throw social proof in there as well for both e-commerce and B2B.
Yep, social
Great.
proof is an amazing one.
Well, maybe two more questions. So we have, what has been your greatest work challenge that's related to CRO recently, and how did you solve it? Maybe Jonathan or Karen can answer that.
I did a fun project a while ago where we coordinated with the paid search team to pull in information about search queries to personalize the on-site experience for users depending on the configuration of the search that they were making in a paid search campaign, and that would customize the content on the landing page. And there was a lot of technical stuff and working with databases and building out the separate user experiences, but ended up seeing some great results.
Amazing. And then finally, what are some of the advantages of using an agency instead of doing a CRO in-house?
I would say if you do it in-house, there's nothing wrong with that, but you're going to have to learn from scratch unless your team has already experience in this space and has done CRO in your space before. But with the agency, we've done tests in multiple different countries, languages, businesses, business types, even both B2B, B2C. We can not only take learnings from your industry and apply to your business, but we can also take learning from other industries and apply to your business as well. So that way, when you run tests, you're more likely to get wins and increase your revenue quicker with less failures.
Yes, that's right. And if you want our team to do it for you, to help you with your CRO or any other marketing area that you need help with, there is a QR code on the screen that you can scan and just fill out the form, and someone from our team will get in touch with you.
Yeah, or you can just email consulting@neilpatel.com.
That's right.
Thank you, everyone.
So people were wondering if this was live. So yes, it is live. As you can see, there are a lot of questions people are asking in the comment section. So just wanted to emphasize that. And thank you, everybody, for coming.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
My name is Neil Patel, and I help companies generate more revenue through digital marketing. Entrepreneur Magazine said I was the #1 marketer in the world, and they also said I created one of the 100 most brilliant companies. I started my first website at the age of 16. I took all the money that I earned from working at an amusement park, and I paid a marketing firm. The marketing firm provided no results, and I quickly learned that I wasn't alone. Out of my frustration and from being broke, I had no choice but to learn marketing. My first client was a power supply manufacturer. I helped them generate another $25 million in sales, and from that point, I realized the power of marketing. I helped everyone that I could, and I built my reputation by being honest and over-delivering. I've helped companies like Google, NBC, Viacom, General Motors, eBay, but nothing's more satisfying than helping small business owners succeed. I founded 4 multi-million-dollar companies, and I've learned all the mistakes that you should avoid. I've written about them on Forbes, Entrepreneur, Inc., Fast Company, and even on my own blogs. It's so awesome to know that colleges from all around the world are teaching my material in their classroom. Over the years, I've received awards from the President of the United States, the House of Representatives, and the United Nations. People believe marketing is expensive and difficult. Fortunately, that's not true. There is a formula. Even if you don't have a technical bone in your body, you can get results. And my mission is to share this formula with you.